The Jedi Temple's windows exploded inward at 0300 hours. Rimuru woke instantly, his enhanced senses screaming danger before his conscious mind fully registered the alarm klaxons. Glass rained down like deadly snowflakes as dark shapes poured through the breached walls. Battle droids by the dozens, their weapons already firing. "Contact!" someone shouted in the corridor. "We're under attack." "Alert! Hostile forces detected. Count 247 combat droids, 12 Magna Guards, 1 primary combatant signature, classified as General Grievous. Attack vectors, simultaneous breach across 14 temple locations. Objective assessment, decapitation strike targeting leadership. Estimated casualties if uncontested, 89% of temple occupants. Recommendation, immediate defensive action." Rimuru rolled out of bed, already shifting to combat mode. His door burst open, not from enemies but from Benimaru, wreathed in flames, his expression deadly serious. "Lord Rimuru, separatist assault. Grievous is here with a full strike force. They're targeting the dormitories and war rooms. They know exactly where everyone is sleeping." "How?" Rimuru demanded, even as they ran toward the sounds of combat. "How did they get past temple security?" "Inside information." Diablo's voice came from the shadows as he materialized beside them. "Someone told them our exact positions. Someone gave them the temple's security codes." His golden eyes gleamed with fury. "Someone betrayed us." They rounded a corner into chaos. A squad of B-2 super battle droids was advancing down the corridor, their wrist rockets and blaster cannons tearing apart walls and floors. Young Jedi Padawans, children barely into their teens, were trying to hold them back with lightsabers, but they were outgunned and terrified. Rimuru didn't hesitate. Black lightning, purple-black electricity arced from his hands. Not the crude lightning of technology, but magical energy that sought out mechanical components with vicious precision. Every droid in the corridor seized up, their circuits frying, their photoreceptors exploding. They collapsed in smoking heaps. "Get to the safe rooms!" Benimaru commanded the Padawans. "Move, now!" "But Master Windu said," one young Twi'lek girl started. "I don't care what Master Windu said." Benimaru's voice carried absolute authority. "Your job is to survive. Go." The children ran. Rimuru and his companions pressed forward, following the sounds of intensifying combat towards the main temple atrium. What they found there was a battlefield. General Grievous stood at the center of the carnage like a skeletal god of war. 4 lightsabers spun in his 4 hands, blue, green, yellow, and purple, each one stolen from a Jedi he'd killed. He moved with terrible grace, his mechanical body capable of attacks no organic being could execute. Around him, Magna Guards and Destroyer droids formed a protective perimeter, while waves of standard battle droids pushed deeper into the temple. Arrayed against him were the Jedi. Mace Windu's purple blade blazed as he deflected blaster fire with preternatural skill. Obi-Wan and Anakin fought back-to-back, their partnership evident in every synchronized move. Kit Fisto's tentacles whipped around him as his green blade carved through droid after droid, and Yoda, ancient, small, and absolutely terrifying, became a green blur of motion, his lightsaber moving too fast for the eye to follow. But it wasn't enough. The droids kept coming, and Grievous was a master of lightsaber combat who fought with no honor, no hesitation, and absolutely no mercy. "Jedi scum!" Grievous's mechanical voice boomed across the atrium. "Your temple burns tonight. Lord Sidious sends his regards." He lunged at Kit Fisto with impossible speed. all 4 lightsabers striking from different angles. The Nautolan Jedi barely managed to parry, driven back by the sheer ferocity of the assault. Then Veldora crashed through the ceiling. The true dragon had transformed mid-flight, his massive draconic form smashing through ancient stonework like it was paper. He landed in the middle of the droid formation with earth-shaking force, and the shockwave alone destroyed dozens of battle droids. "Grievous!" Veldora's voice shook the walls. "I've been reading about you, the feared cyborg general, the Jedi killer, finally a worthy opponent." He shifted back to humanoid form, his storm dragon aura crackling around him like violent weather. "Let's see if you're as dangerous as your reputation suggests." Grievous turned all 4 lightsabers toward this new threat. For a moment there was silence as the cyborg general assessed the being before him. Then he laughed, a horrible mechanical sound. "You are not in my combat database, no matter. I will add your parts to my collection." He attacked with blinding speed. But Veldora was a catastrophe-class being who'd fought demon lords and lived for centuries. He caught 2 of Grievous's lightsaber strikes on materialized storm dragon claws, superheated energy meeting conceptual force, while dodging the other 2 with casual grace. "Oh, you're fast!" Veldora laughed with genuine delight. "But I've fought faster. Let me show you something interesting." He released a burst of probability manipulation, his unique skill that made unlikely outcomes reality. Grievous's next strike, perfectly calculated, impossible to avoid, somehow missed completely as the cyborg's mechanical leg seized up for exactly 0.3 seconds. Off balance, Grievous was forced to leap back, his photoreceptor eyes widening slightly. What did you do?" "Magic," Veldora declared cheerfully. "Or, as you would understand it, I made your 0.01% chance of mechanical failure into a 100% certainty. Neat trick, right?" While Veldora engaged Grievous, Rimuru and the others tore through the droid forces with systematic efficiency. Benimaru's flames turned battle droids into molten slag. Diablo moved through the ranks like a shadow, each touch leaving deactivated machines in his wake. Shion's sword cleaved through Magna Guards with raw power that made lightsabers look subtle. But Rimuru's attention was divided. Something about this attack felt wrong. Analysis in progress. Observation. Attack is tactically sound but strategically questionable. Separatists gain minimal advantage from temple raid. Risk versus reward ratio. Unfavorable. Conclusion. This attack serves purpose beyond military objectives. Probable goals: 1. Distraction from primary operation elsewhere. 2. Provocation designed to force Jedi into hasty action. 3. Test of interdimensional visitors' combat capabilities. 4. Assassination of specific high-value targets. "This is a distraction," Rimuru realized aloud. "Raphael, where's Palpatine right now?" Tracking. Supreme Chancellor's location. Senate building. Private chambers. Status. Active. Multiple encrypted communications detected in last 30 minutes. Recipients unknown. Warning, Chancellor is coordinating something during this attack. "He's using this as cover," Rimuru shouted to Mace Windu over the sounds of combat. "Whatever Palpatine's planning, he's doing it now, while we're busy here." Mace cut down 3 droids with a single sweeping strike. "Then we end this quickly. Masters, form up. Battle meditation. Now!" The senior Jedi Masters moved into a circular formation, their lightsabers held in defensive positions while their minds linked through the Force. Rimuru felt a shift in the air, something vast and powerful focusing like a lens. Every Jedi in the temple suddenly moved with perfect coordination, their attacks synchronized, their defenses overlapping. The battle droids didn't stand a chance. Within minutes, the mechanical army was reduced to scrap. The Magna Guards fell to concentrated assault, and Grievous found himself facing not just Veldora, but 6 of the Jedi's finest warriors, all attacking in perfect harmony. "Retreat!" Grievous snarled. He triggered smoke canisters built into his body, filling the atrium with choking clouds. "This isn't over, Jedi. I will return, and next time..." A massive sword point emerged from his chest. Xion stood behind the cyborg general, her blade having pierced him from back to front with such force that his mechanical body seized up completely. She twisted the blade, and sparks flew from Grievous's internal systems. "You talk too much," Xion said flatly, then ripped her sword free. Grievous collapsed, his photoreceptors flickering. His vocabulator sputtered, "Impossible? No one? That fast?" "Should have fought instead of monologuing," Xion said, already moving to protect Rimuru from any remaining threats. But Grievous wasn't finished. With his last functioning arm, he triggered an emergency beacon. Throughout the temple, the remaining battle droids began a synchronized self-destruct sequence. Dozens of walking bombs, all set to detonate in 30 seconds. "Everyone out," Mace commanded. "Now! Move! No time!" Rimuru's mind raced through options. 30 seconds wasn't enough to evacuate the temple, and the explosions would bring down entire sections, crushing anyone inside. "Raphael, can we..." "Solution identified. Recommend Predator Gluttony ability. Consume all explosive materials simultaneously. Risk: moderate internal damage from chain detonation. Success probability 87.3%. Alternative solutions, none with acceptable survival rates." "Do it!" Rimuru's body exploded with dark energy as he activated his ultimate skill, Predator, the ability that had let him consume and analyze anything, extended outward in a massive sphere of swirling void. Every battle droid still standing was pulled toward him, sucked into the dimensional space within his body. 29 seconds. The droids tumbled into his internal dimension, their self-destruct timers still counting down. Rimuru felt them inside him, hundreds of explosive devices all about to detonate. 15 seconds. "Lord Rimuru, what are you doing?" Benimaru shouted. "Saving the temple! Everyone shields up!" 10 seconds. The Jedi raised force barriers. Rimuru's companions activated their defensive abilities. Shuna began weaving protective magic around the entire group. 5 seconds. Rimuru compressed his internal dimension, sealing it as tightly as possible. He could feel the explosives reaching critical mass. 3, 2, 1. The world turned white. Inside Rimuru's internal dimension, hundreds of thermal detonators exploded simultaneously. The force was staggering, apocalyptic, contained within a space roughly the size of a small room. Rimuru's body convulsed, smoke pouring from his mouth and nose, his magical barriers straining to their absolute limit. Warning: internal damage 34%, structural integrity 67%, pain receptors overloaded, status critical but stable, detonation successfully contained, 0 external casualties. Recommendation: immediate regeneration protocol. Rimuru collapsed to his knees, coughing up smoke and ash, but around him, the temple stood intact. No explosions, no casualties, just shocked silence as everyone processed what had just happened. He ate the explosions," Ahsoka whispered in disbelief. "I told you," Veldora said proudly, helping Rimuru to his feet. Rimuru's special, though that was stupid, partner. You could have died. Couldn't let the temple fall. Rimuru managed between coughs. His body was already regenerating, the high-speed regeneration ability working overtime. Is everyone okay? We're fine, Obi-Wan said, staring at Rimuru with newfound respect and concern. But you're not. You need medical attention. I'm healing already, Rimuru said, and indeed the smoke had stopped pouring from him. Give me 5 minutes and I'll be good as new, but we don't have 5 minutes. Palpatine used this attack as cover for something. We need to find out what. Zoe materialized from the shadows, and his expression was grave. Lord Rimuru, I intercepted communications during the battle. Palpatine has moved up the Senate session. It's happening now, right now. He's calling for the constitutional amendment vote in an emergency session at dawn. That's in 40 minutes, Mace said, checking his chrono. We'll never make it in time to prepare. Then we don't prepare, Anakin interrupted. He stood near Grievous's smoking body, his expression hard. We go now. We confront him with whatever evidence we have. Because if that amendment passes, it's over. He becomes emperor legally, and everything we've fought for becomes treason. Yoda closed his eyes, reaching out with the Force. When he opened them, they were filled with determination. Right, young Skywalker is. Destiny calls. To the Senate we must go. Tonight, end this war does, one way or another. Wait! Padme's voice came from the corridor. She ran toward them, still in her nightclothes but carrying a data pad. I've been monitoring Senate communications. Palpatine just declared the Jedi Temple attack as proof that the Jedi have lost control. He's blaming you for the security failure. He's saying the Jedi are compromised by the Separatists and must be brought under direct Senate oversight. He's framing us, Obi-Wan realized. The attack wasn't just a distraction, it was evidence. Proof that the Jedi can't protect Coruscant, that we need stronger executive authority. It's brilliant, Diablo admitted grudgingly. He attacks us with his separatist forces, then uses our inability to prevent the attack as justification for seizing more power. And if we'd failed to stop the assault, we'd be dead. If we succeeded as we did, we're merely incompetent. Either way, he wins. Not if we expose him first, Rimuru said, his strength returning as his regeneration completed. To the Senate now, we bring every piece of evidence, every recording, every data file. We put it all on display before he can spin his narrative. And when he reveals himself as a Sith Lord and attacks, Mace asked. Rimuru's expression hardened. Then we show the galaxy exactly what happens when a tyrant picks a fight with beings from another universe. They moved quickly, Jedi masters, clone commanders, interdimensional travelers, and one very determined senator. As they boarded transports to the Senate building, Rimuru caught Anakin standing apart, staring at the burning wreckage of battle droids. You're worried about him, Rimuru observed quietly. Anakin didn't pretend not to understand. Palpatine he's been my friend for years, my mentor. Even knowing what he is, part of me doesn't want to believe it. Part of me thinks there must be some mistake, some explanation. That's the insidious thing about manipulation, Rimuru said. The best manipulators make you doubt your own perceptions. They make you question whether what you're seeing is real. But Anakin, facts don't care about feelings. Palpatine is Darth Sidious. He's orchestrated this entire war. He's planning to murder every Jedi in the galaxy. Those are facts regardless of how you feel about them. I know, Anakin said quietly. But knowing and accepting are different things. They are, Rimuru agreed. But you'll do the right thing, because ultimately, you're not the kind of person who lets friendship excuse genocide. You're better than that. Anakin looked at him, and there was gratitude in his eyes. Thank you for believing that. As their transport lifted off toward the Senate building, Rimuru looked out at Coruscant's skyline. Dawn was breaking, painting the city in shades of orange and gold. It should have been beautiful. Instead, it felt like watching the sun rise on a battlefield. Notice, approaching Senate building, detecting 2,347 senators present, 4,191 support staff, 812 Senate guards, and 1 Sith Lord actively manipulating Force energy. Warning, Subject Palpatine is prepared for confrontation. Energy readings suggest combat-ready state. Probability of violent conflict, 94.8%. Recommend full combat readiness. This will not end peacefully. I know, Rimuru thought, but we have to try, because if we don't, billions die. Inside the Senate building, in his private chambers overlooking the Senate floor, Palpatine felt the Jedi approaching through the Force. He smiled, the genuine smile of a predator who'd just cornered his prey. So, he whispered to himself, they come at last, just as I knew they would, just as I planned. He activated his lightsaber, a weapon he'd kept hidden for decades, and its crimson blade cast blood-red shadows across his face. Come, Jedi. Come, interdimensional fools. Let me show you why the Sith are eternal, why the dark side is supreme, and why your hope, he laughed, a sound of pure malevolence, was always just another form of despair. The sun rose fully over Coruscant, and the endgame began. The Senate chamber was designed to inspire awe, a vast circular arena where thousands of repulsor pods floated in concentric rings, each one holding representatives from across the galaxy. Today, it was packed beyond capacity. Word of the emergency session had spread fast, and senators had rushed to attend, sensing that history was about to be made. They had no idea how right they were. Rimuru walked through the Senate's main entrance, flanked by Jedi Masters and his companions, and every conversation in the massive chamber stuttered to a halt. Thousands of eyes turned toward them. Holovid cameras swiveled, capturing every moment for broadcast across the galaxy. Supreme Chancellor Palpatine stood at the central podium, his face a mask of grandfatherly concern. When he spoke, his voice carried through the chamber's acoustics with practiced perfection. Ah, Master Windu, Master Yoda, and our guests from beyond the stars. How fortuitous that you've arrived. I was just explaining to the Senate about the tragic attack on the Jedi Temple, an attack that demonstrates how desperately we need stronger security measures. He gestured to the assembled senators. As you can see, I've called this emergency session to address the crisis. The Republic can no longer afford indecision. The only crisis here, Mace Windu said, his voice carrying with equal power, is the one you've orchestrated, Chancellor. Or should I say, Darth Sidious. The Senate chamber exploded into chaos. Senators shouted in disbelief, demanding explanations. Security personnel moved towards the Jedi, uncertain whether to intervene. The holovid cameras captured everything, broadcasting the confrontation live across billions of worlds. Palpatine's expression transformed into shocked hurt. Master Windu, I don't understand. Are you accusing me, the Supreme Chancellor of the Republic, of being a Sith Lord? Have you taken leave of your senses? We have evidence, Obi-Wan declared, stepping forward. He activated a holographic projector, and suddenly the air above the Senate floor filled with images, communication logs, financial records, recordings of conversations between Palpatine and Count Dooku spanning years. These files prove that you've been controlling both sides of the war, Obi-Wan continued. You commissioned the clone army in secret. You manipulated the separatist crisis. You've orchestrated every major event of the Clone Wars for your own political gain. Senator Bail Organa leaned forward in his repulsor pod, studying the data with growing horror. If this is true, Supreme Chancellor, is this true? Of course not, Palpatine's voice carried wounded indignation. These are obvious fabrications. Count Dooku himself likely created them. He's a known traitor and liar. The Jedi are attempting a coup, can't you see? They've attacked me with false evidence because they fear my reforms, my plans to bring true security to the Republic. Senator Orn Free-Ta nodded vigorously, his leku swaying. The Chancellor is right. The Jedi have always held too much power. Now they fear accountability. More senators voiced agreement, some genuine, others clearly on Palpatine's payroll. All of them creating exactly the chaos the Sith Lord wanted. This is getting us nowhere, Rimuru said quietly to Mace. He's too good at this. He's spinning every accusation into proof of Jedi aggression. Agreed. Subject Palpatine is employing advanced rhetorical manipulation. Current Senate opinion: 43% support Jedi accusations, 39% support Chancellor, 18% undecided. Trajectory: shifting toward Chancellor due to emotional appeals and existing relationships. Recommendation: employ evidence that cannot be disputed or spun. Biological proof required. We need to make him reveal himself, Rimuru said. Force him to show his true nature. Anakin stepped forward, and the chamber quieted. Everyone knew Skywalker, the famous hero with no fear, Palpatine's protege. When he spoke, his voice shook slightly. Chancellor, I've known you for years. You've been my mentor, my friend. But these accusations, I need to hear the truth from you. Not as your apprentice, not as anyone's soldier, just as someone who deserves honesty. His blue eyes fixed on Palpatine. Are you Darth Sidious? Palpatine's expression softened, and for a moment, he looked like nothing more than a tired old man facing betrayal from someone he loved. Anakin, my boy, you of all people should know me better than this. Have I ever lied to you? Have I ever done anything but try to help you? Answer the question, Anakin pressed. Of course I'm not a Sith Lord, Palpatine said gently. The Jedi have been clouded by their own dogma. They see enemies everywhere because they fear change. But you, Anakin, you understand that sometimes the old ways must be challenged. That's why they've never truly accepted you. It was masterful manipulation, hitting every one of Anakin's insecurities. Rimuru saw the young Jedi waver, saw doubt creeping back in. He's lying, Rimuru said, stepping forward, and I can prove it. Raphael, scan him. Full spectrum analysis. Display the results publicly. Acknowledged. Initiating comprehensive bioscan of subject Palpatine. Warning, subject will detect scanning attempt. Proceeding anyway. Scanning. Results compiled. Displaying. A new hologram appeared above the Senate floor. A detailed biological breakdown of Palpatine's body, color-coded and annotated, and it was damning. This is a real-time biological scan, Rimuru announced to the chamber. Watch the readings carefully. Supreme Chancellor Palpatine's cells show corruption consistent with prolonged dark side exposure. His midichlorian count is off the charts, higher than any recorded Jedi. And most tellingly, the hologram zoomed in on Palpatine's brain activity. He's actively using the Force right now to project false emotions and manipulate this gathering. The Senate fell silent. Senator after senator studied the holographic data with growing comprehension. Palpatine's grandfatherly mask slipped. Just for a second, but it was enough. His eyes went cold, calculating. "Clever," he said softly, his voice losing its warm timbre. "Using abilities we cannot verify or counter. Technology from another universe that we must simply trust is accurate. How very convenient." "Then prove it wrong," Diablo challenged from the shadows. "Submit to a medical examination by neutral parties. Let Jedi healers examine you for dark side corruption. If you're innocent, you have nothing to hide." "I refuse to submit to this witch hunt," Palpatine declared, his voice rising. "I am the Supreme Chancellor of the Galactic Republic. I will not be subjected to—" "To what?" Mace interrupted. "To the same scrutiny any other citizen would face. You always said no one was above the law, Chancellor. Were those just words?" The trap was closing. Rimuru could see it in Palpatine's expression, the calculation, the weighing of options. Submit to examination and be exposed, or refuse and appear guilty. Every path led to revelation, which meant Palpatine had to flip the board entirely. "You want the truth?" Palpatine's voice changed completely, losing all pretense of warmth or frailty. It became cold, powerful, and utterly confident. "Very well. I am Darth Sidious, Dark Lord of the Sith. I have orchestrated every event of the past 15 years. I commissioned the clone army. I manipulated the separatist crisis. I have played this galaxy like a musician plays an instrument." The Senate erupted into pandemonium. Senators screamed, some in horror, others in rage. Security forces raised their weapons, uncertain who to point them at. And through it all, Palpatine stood at his podium, smiling with genuine amusement. "But here's what you fail to understand," Palpatine continued, his voice somehow cutting through the chaos. "I did all of this for the galaxy. The Jedi were failures, arrogant, blind, clinging to ancient dogma, while the Republic rotted from within. The Senate was corrupt beyond redemption, bickering fools more interested in credits than citizens. This galaxy needed strong leadership, decisive action, the vision to make the hard choices that democracy cannot." He raised his hand, and lightning crackled around his fingers, not metaphorically but literally. Blue-white force lightning that illuminated his face with harsh shadows. "I am the solution you've all been too weak to embrace. And now..." His smile widened into something terrible. "Now that you know the truth, what will you do about it?" Senator Bail Organa stood in his repulsor pod. "Guards, arrest him. He's just confessed to treason." Senate guards moved forward, their weapons raised. Palpatine looked at them with something approaching pity. "Execute Order 66. Those 3 words hit the chamber like a bomb. Every clone trooper in the building, dozens of them stationed as security, suddenly went rigid. Their eyes became distant, empty, and as one, they turned their weapons on the Jedi. "No!" Commander Cody's voice rang out. He stood with Rex, Bly, and Wolf, the commanders who'd had their chips removed. "Troopers, stand down. The order is illegal. The Chancellor is a traitor." But it was too late. The affected clones fired. Lightsabers ignited across the chamber as Jedi deflected the sudden barrage. Senators screamed and dove for cover. Rimuru threw up a magical barrier, protecting a cluster of civilian personnel who'd been caught in the crossfire. "All clones across the galaxy," Palpatine continued, his voice amplified by the Force itself, broadcasting through military channels. "Execute Order 66. The Jedi have betrayed the Republic. Kill them all. Critical alert. Order 66 transmitted across all military frequencies. Estimated affected clones, 2,947,000. Jedi across galaxy now under attack by their own soldiers. Coruscant Temple Guard status compromised. Jedi in Outer Rim. Sieges under fire. Casualty projections catastrophic. Time to full Jedi extinction if unchecked. 6.7 hours. "Raphael, the countermeasure," Rimuru shouted. "Activate it now." Deploying countermeasure signal. Broadcasting override frequency on all military channels. Attempting to disable inhibitor chips remotely. Partial success. Estimated chips disabled 23%. Remaining clones still under Order 66 compulsion. Insufficient coverage. More time required for full deployment. 23%. It meant hundreds of thousands of clones were freed from the programming. But over 2 million were still trying to kill Jedi across the galaxy. It was better than nothing, but it wasn't enough. Palpatine laughed, the sound echoing through the Force itself. "Did you really think I wouldn't have backups? Redundancies? I've planned this for decades. Your countermeasure is clever but insufficient." He raised both hands, and Force lightning exploded outward in a massive wave. Jedi Masters threw up barriers, but the sheer power was staggering. This wasn't the carefully controlled dark side Rimuru had sensed before. This was Palpatine unleashed, a Sith Lord who'd hidden his true power for so long that its revelation was like watching a sun go supernova. "I am power incarnate," Palpatine roared. "I am the dark side made flesh, and you..." He focused on Rimuru. "You interdimensional fools who thought you could waltz into my galaxy and upset my plans. You have no idea what you're facing." He thrust his hands forward and lightning arced toward Rimuru with lethal intent. But Diablo materialized between them, and the lightning struck the Demon Lord directly. For a moment, there was silence. Then Diablo smiled. "Is that all?" The demon's voice was soft, dangerous. "My lord, I believe this Sith Lord is attempting to harm you with electrical attacks. Shall I demonstrate what real power looks like?" Diablo's form seemed to expand, his presence filling the chamber with oppressive darkness. His golden eyes blazed with unholy light, and when he spoke, his voice carried the weight of a being who'd existed since the dawn of creation. "I am Diablo, primordial black. I have consumed devils, slaughtered armies, and served a being who killed a dragon. You, Palpatine, are merely a skilled politician with delusions of godhood. Allow me to educate you on the difference between cosmic power and parlor tricks." He raised one hand, and shadows coalesced into solid form, a blade of pure darkness that sang with annihilation. Palpatine's eyes widened fractionally, and for the first time, Rimuru saw genuine concern cross the Sith Lord's face. "Impossible," Palpatine whispered. "That energy, it's not the Force, it's not technology, it's..." "Different," Rimuru finished, stepping up beside Diablo. Around him, his companions took battle positions. Benamaru's flames ignited. Shion drew her sword. Veldora's aura crackled with storm energy. Shuna began weaving protective barriers around the senators. "We tried to warn you. We tried to do this peacefully, but you chose violence. So now we show you what beings from another universe are truly capable of." Palpatine's composure cracked completely. his face twisted into something inhuman, rage and hate given flesh. Kill them all. Senate guards loyal to Palpatine opened fire. Clones still under Order 66's influence joined them, and from hidden compartments throughout the chamber, battle droids emerged. Palpatine's final contingency, secret forces he'd positioned for exactly this moment. The Senate chamber became a war zone. Jedi Masters moved with deadly precision, their lightsabers deflecting blaster bolts while they tried to protect senators and civilians. Commander Cody and his freed clones engaged their mind-controlled brothers, trying to disable rather than kill. And Rimuru's team unleashed abilities that defied everything the Star Wars galaxy thought possible. Benimaru became a whirlwind of flame, his Hellflare technique turning battle droids into molten slag before they could fire a shot. Shion's sword, empowered by her unique skill, cut through energy shields and armor as if they were paper. Hakaru moved like wind-made flesh, his blade striking faster than eyes could follow, disabling enemies with surgical precision. Runga grew to his massive, dire wolf form, his jaws crushing droids while his pack howled, summoning storms that disrupted electronic targeting systems. Gobta, despite his usual cowardice, fought with surprising skill, his agility and unconventional tactics creating openings for others to exploit. Zoe simply vanished into the shadows, reappearing behind Palpatine's elite guards and neutralizing them before they realized he was there. Geld formed an impenetrable defensive line, his orc disaster strength letting him shield entire sections of terrified senators. But it was Veldora who truly demonstrated the gap between universes. The true dragon spread his arms, and reality itself seemed to bend. Storm King's Wrath, a localized hurricane, formed inside the Senate chamber. Winds that tore droids apart, lightning that fried electronic systems, pressure differentials that crushed battle droids like empty cans. It was power on a scale that made Palpatine's Force lightning look like static electricity. "What are you?" Palpatine screamed over the chaos, his composure completely shattered. "We're the people who don't belong in your plans," Rimuru said. "The variables you couldn't predict, the pieces on the board you didn't know existed." He activated his magic, and the air around him shimmered with compressed force. "And we're about to show you exactly why prophecy and precognition mean nothing when facing the truly unpredictable." Palpatine snarled and unleashed another wave of Force lightning, but this time he poured everything into it. Decades of accumulated dark side power, malevolence refined to its purest form, hatred given physical manifestation. The lightning struck Rimuru directly, and the sheer amperage should have reduced him to ash. Instead, Rimuru absorbed it. Notice, Force lightning classified as electrical energy with spiritual emotional component. Analyzing. Predator skill activating. Consuming energy. Converting to magicules. Absorption 100% successful. Energy gained. Substantial. New ability acquired. Force lightning manipulation. Integration complete. Rimuru raised his hand, and crimson lightning, not blue like Palpatine's, but deep red like freshly spilled blood, crackled around his fingers. "Thank you for the demonstration, but I think I prefer my version." He unleashed it, and Palpatine barely managed to block with a hasty Force barrier. The Sith Lord staggered, genuine fear finally showing in his eyes. "You can learn my abilities just by experiencing them. That's not possible." "In your universe, maybe not," Rimuru agreed. "But I'm not from your universe, and in mine, I've absorbed and replicated the abilities of Demon lords, dragons, and beings you can't even imagine. Your force lightning, just another skill for my collection. Palpatine's face contorted with rage. Then I'll show you power you cannot replicate, power drawn from the dark side itself. He began to transform. His face, already aged and twisted, became even more monstrous as he stopped suppressing the dark side's corrosive effects on his body. His eyes turned yellow, his skin gray and withered. The grandfatherly politician vanished entirely, replaced by the true face of Darth Sidious, a creature of pure malevolence. I have studied the dark side for over 50 years, Sidious roared. I have learned techniques forgotten for millennia. I have transcended the limitations of flesh. He raised his lightsaber, and around him, the air itself began to darken. You may be powerful, interdimensional traveler, but I am eternal. He lunged, and the real battle began. Sidious moved with speed that shouldn't have been possible for a human body, the Force enhancing him beyond normal limits. His lightsaber struck at Rimuru from impossible angles, testing defenses, probing for weaknesses. But Rimuru had fought Hinata Sakaguchi, whose swordsmanship bordered on precognition. He'd faced Diablo in training, whose speed made light look slow, and he'd survived Veldora's casual attempts to kill him when they first met. Darth Sidious was dangerous, but Rimuru had faced worse. He caught Sidious's lightsaber on a blade of compressed air, magically reinforced to withstand the plasma blade. Their weapons locked, and for a moment they stood face to face. "You cannot win," Sidious hissed. "Even if you kill me, even if you stop Order 66, the damage is done. The Republic will tear itself apart. The Jedi are broken. I have already won." "That's where you're wrong," Rimuru said calmly. "You built your entire plan on one assumption, that you'd remain hidden, unknown, able to manipulate from the shadows. But we exposed you. The galaxy knows what you are now. Every senator, every citizen watching this broadcast, they all saw you confess. They all watched you order the Jedi killed. You're not a master manipulator anymore. You're just a war criminal." He pushed forward, breaking the lock, and his blade swept toward Sidious's exposed side. The Sith Lord barely twisted away, Force lightning erupting from his free hand in desperation. Rimuru absorbed it again, his power growing with each attack. Around them, the battle raged. Jedi and freed clones fought side by side against those still under Order 66's influence. Rimuru's companions systematically dismantled Palpatine's forces, and across the galaxy, transmitted live on every holonet channel, billions watched the Republic die and something new struggle to be born from its ashes. Sidious realized he was losing. His forces were falling. His carefully crafted plans were crumbling. And this damned interdimensional traveler was not only matching him, but adapting to his techniques in real time. "If I cannot have this galaxy," Sidious snarled, "then no one will." He thrust both hands skyward, and Rimuru felt a massive surge of dark-side energy. "Warning, Subject Sidious is preparing large-scale force attack. Analyzing. Classification. Force storm. Effect. Tears open space-time fabric. Creates localized wormholes capable of consuming matter and energy. Destructive potential. Can destroy entire city districts. Current target. This Senate building and surrounding area. Estimated casualties 2.7 million beings. Charging time 15 seconds. Countermeasures limited. Recommend immediate evacuation or preemptive strike. He's going to destroy the entire Senate district. Rimuru shouted, "Everyone get out, now!" But there wasn't time. 15 seconds wasn't enough to evacuate thousands of senators, millions of civilians in the surrounding buildings. If that force storm unleashed, it would be a massacre. Rimuru made a decision. Raphael, analyze the force storm. Can we contain it? Probability of containment using Predator skill, 67.8%. Risk extreme. Success requires perfect timing and may result in severe internal damage. Failure results in complete spatial collapse, immediate death of analysis subject, destruction of Senate district. Recommendation, attempt anyway. No alternative solutions available. Do it! Diablo Veldora, clear the area. Get everyone as far away as possible. My lord, you can't... Diablo started. That's an order. As his companions herded senators and civilians toward the exits, as Jedi grabbed anyone they could reach and force pushed them to safety, Rimuru stood alone before Darth Sidious. The Sith Lord's hands were raised above his head, and between them, reality itself was tearing apart. A swirling vortex of darkness formed, growing larger by the second, crackling with energy that made the Force lightning look like candlelight. "You die here, fool," Sidious screamed over the howling void. "And you take this entire district with you." 10 seconds. Rimuru activated every defensive skill he possessed. Multi-layer barrier, magic resistance, physical resistance, thermal fluctuation resistance nullification, pain nullification. His body became a fortress of layered protections. 5 seconds. He reached deep inside himself, to the core of his being where Predator resided, the skill that had defined him since his reincarnation, the ability that let him consume and analyze anything. "Raphael, if this kills me, make sure my friends get home somehow. Promise me." Acknowledged. Analysis subject is advised that emotional attachment protocols make this request difficult to process. Probability of successful return to Cardinal World without analysis subject 0.03%. Recommendation, do not die. I'll do my best. 0. Sidious released the Force storm, a tear in space-time itself, a howling void that consumed matter and energy indiscriminately, exploded outward with enough power to level everything within a kilometer radius. It should have killed everyone in the Senate building instantly, should have spread like a cancer through the district, consuming millions. Instead, it hit Rimuru, and Rimuru ate it. His Predator skill activated at maximum capacity, creating a void within a void, an absence more absolute than the Force storm itself. The technique that could tear through space-time met the ability that could consume anything, and for a moment, the two forces struggled. Rimuru screamed. It felt like his soul was being torn apart and reassembled simultaneously. The Force storm wasn't just physical energy, it was conceptual destruction, the literal unmaking of reality. Containing it, consuming it, required him to process annihilation itself. Warning, structural integrity 23%. Pain receptors overloaded, magical capacity 89% depleted, soul damage, critical, continue absorption, YN. Yes! The Force storm poured into him, and Rimuru felt himself fragmenting under the strain. But slowly, impossibly, Predator began to win. The void was consumed. The tear in reality sealed. The destruction that should have killed millions was contained within one being who refused to break. And then it was over. The Senate chamber fell silent except for the sound of Rimuru collapsing to his knees. Smoke rising from his body, blood dripping from his nose and ears. But the building stood. The senators lived. The district remained intact. Darth Sidious stared in absolute disbelief. That's impossible. No one can contain a force storm. It's pure entropic destruction. Rimuru looked up at him through pain-blurred vision and smiled. I'm really getting tired of you saying things are impossible. He raised one trembling hand, and in his palm, a miniature version of the force storm swirled, controlled, contained, and very much aimed at Sidious. Let me show you what impossible looks like. He released it. The miniature force storm struck Darth Sidious like the wrath of an angry god. The Sith Lord barely managed to throw up a force barrier, but Rimuru's redirected attack, entropy itself weaponized, tore through his defenses like they were paper. Sidious was hurled backward, his body slamming into the Chancellor's podium, hard enough to shatter the reinforced durasteel. No, Sidious roared, pulling himself up. His robes were torn, his body smoking from the impact, but his eyes burned with manic fury. I will not be defeated by an outsider. This galaxy is mine. 50 years of planning, decades of manipulation. I will not. Mace Windu's purple lightsaber ignited at his throat. You're done, Sidious, Mace said, his voice carrying absolute conviction. Behind him, Yoda, Obi-Wan, Kit Fisto, and a dozen other Jedi Masters formed a circle around the fallen Sith Lord, their blades creating a cage of light. But Sidious laughed, a broken manic sound that echoed through the Force itself. Done, done, you fools. Order 66 is active. Even as we speak, Jedi are dying across the galaxy. Your precious order is being exterminated by the very soldiers you trusted. I may fall here, but my victory is already failing. Soei's voice came from the shadows. The ninja materialized on the Senate floor, holding a data pad. Lord Rimuru's countermeasure signal has reached full deployment. Current status, 67% of inhibitor chips successfully disabled. The percentage is rising every minute as the signal propagates through military networks. Your Order 66 is collapsing, Sidious. The clones are waking up. Confirmation. Countermeasure deployment, 71% and increasing. Estimated full coverage in 37 minutes. Casualty report, 847 Jedi confirmed killed. 2,103 Jedi successfully evacuated or rescued by freed clones. 198 Jedi status unknown. Projected final casualties if countermeasure reaches 100%. Approximately 15% of total Jedi Order. Devastating but not extinction level. Conclusion: Order 66 has been significantly compromised. Rimuru, still on his knees and recovering from consuming the Force storm, managed to speak. You built your entire genocide on a technological trigger, but you never considered that someone might develop a counter-trigger. Your clones are programmed, Sidious, and anything programmed can be reprogrammed. Across the galaxy, the tide was turning. On Kashyyyk, Commander Gree raised his blaster toward Master Yoda's hologram, then suddenly stopped, his hand trembling. The inhibitor chip in his skull sparked, overridden by Rimuru's countermeasure signal. Confusion crossed his face, then horror as he realized what he'd been about to do. General Yoda, Gree shouted into his comm. Sir, there's been the clones, we've been compromised. Do not trust the clone army. I repeat, do not. The signal cleared, his chip fully disabled. Sir, my chip is offline. I'm myself again. Orders? On Utapau, Commander Cody stood over Obi-Wan Kenobi's position on a cliff edge, his blaster raised. The Order 66 protocol screamed in his mind to fire, to eliminate the Jedi traitor. But Cody had already had his chip removed days ago. He raised his blaster toward the sky and fired 3 times. their prearranged signal for trust no one. Obi-Wan, who had been in his holographic form coordinating from the Senate, smiled grimly. "Well done, Cody. Evacuate all Jedi immediately. This war just took a very different turn." On Felucia, Ayla Secura sensed Commander Bly's hesitation a fraction of a second before he would have fired. She spun, her blue blade deflecting the shot meant for her back, and saw the confusion in Bly's eyes as his chip failed to fully activate. "Commander?" she asked carefully. Bly dropped his weapon, his face stricken. "General, there's something in my head. Some kind of order. It wanted me to kill you, but it's fading, He looked up at her with anguished eyes. "What did they do to us?" Across hundreds of worlds, variations of this scene played out. Some Jedi died before the countermeasure reached them. Some were saved by clones whose loyalty proved stronger than their programming. And some simply ran, finally understanding the true scope of Palpatine's betrayal. But the extinction Sidious had planned, the complete annihilation of the Jedi Order, was not going to happen. Back in the Senate chamber, Darth Sidious realized his defeat was absolute. His political power was gone. His confession had been broadcast live across the galaxy. His military contingency had been countered. His separatist forces were leaderless with Dooku's betrayal, and he was surrounded by enemies who wanted him dead or imprisoned. A normal person would have surrendered. Sidious was not normal. "If I cannot rule this galaxy," the Sith Lord hissed, "then I will drag it into darkness with me." He raised his hands, and the dark side itself seemed to scream. Every Force-sensitive being in the Senate building felt it, a gathering of power so immense, so malevolent that it made his earlier Force storm look like a parlor trick. "He's doing something massive!" Ahsoka shouted, her head tails rigid with alarm. "Something worse than before." Critical threat detected. Subject Sidious is channeling dark side energy beyond safe limits. Analysis. Subject is preparing to trigger self-destructive Force technique. Classification. Essence transfer. Effect. Destroys current body while projecting consciousness and Force presence into new host. Requires receptive target, preferably Force-sensitive and emotionally compromised. Probable target, Skywalker, Anakin. Secondary targets, any nearby Force-sensitive being. Warning, if successful, Subject Sidious will possess new body and retain full knowledge and power. Countermeasure difficulty, extreme. "He's going to try to possess someone," Rimuru realized with horror. "He's targeting Anakin," Obi-Wan shouted. Anakin stood frozen, caught between advancing to help restrain Sidious and maintaining distance from the dark side energy. That moment of hesitation was all Sidious needed. The Sith Lord's consciousness, refined by decades of dark side study, lanced out like a spear toward Anakin's mind. It was an attack more intimate than any lightsaber, more violation than any torture. Sidious was trying to erase Anakin's soul and wear his body like a suit of armor. Anakin screamed. His body went rigid, his eyes rolling back. As two consciousnesses warred inside his skull, Sidious, powerful beyond measure, experienced in mental domination and utterly ruthless. And Anakin, strong in the Force but emotionally vulnerable, his doubts and fears providing handholds for the invading presence. "Anakin!" Padme's voice cut through the chaos. She ran from where she'd been sheltering, ignoring the danger, and grabbed Anakin's hand. "Fight him! You're stronger than this. Don't let him take you from me." And Rimuru acted on instinct. He reached out with his magic, not to attack Sidious's body, but to invade the mental battlefield where Anakin's soul fought for survival. Raphael, can we assist in mental combat? Affirmative. Analysis subject possesses thought acceleration, mind domination resistance, soul manipulation abilities. Can interface with ongoing possession attempt. Warning, entering another being's mental space carries significant risk. Proceed. Do it! Rimuru's consciousness dove into Anakin's mind, and suddenly he was standing in a mental landscape that looked like Coruscant on fire. Anakin stood at the center, his form flickering and unstable, while Sidious's presence loomed over him like a dark titan. Foolish, Sidious's mental voice boomed. You dare enter this space? Now I'll consume you both. Raphael, Rimuru said calmly, even in this mental realm, analyze his possession technique, find the weakness. Analyzing, technique identified, Sith essence transfer, variant developed by Darth Sidious over 50 years. Mechanism, projects consciousness as coherent force construct, overwrites target's neural patterns, establishes new mind-body connection. Weakness identified. Technique requires continuous concentration and uninterrupted power flow. Disruption of dark side energy connection will cause technique failure and potentially permanent damage to caster's consciousness. Recommendation: sever his connection to the dark side at source. Anakin, Rimuru called out, focus on your memories, the people you love, the moments that define you. Make your mind hostile territory. Anakin's flickering form stabilized slightly. Images began forming around them. Shmi Skywalker's gentle smile, Padme's laughter, Obi-Wan's patient teaching, Ahsoka's fierce loyalty. Each memory was like a shield, pushing back against Sidious's invading darkness. Clever, Sidious admitted, but insufficient. I have studied the minds of thousands. I know every trick, every defense. His presence pressed harder, and Anakin cried out in pain. Then let me show you something you've never studied, Rimuru said. Predator. In the mental landscape, Rimuru's form transformed. His appearance became something between human and monster, a visualization of his true nature as a being who consumed and adapted. And he reached out toward Sidious's projected consciousness with the same ability that had consumed the Force storm. What are you? No! You cannot consume consciousness itself. That's impossible, Rimuru finished. Yeah, I'm tired of hearing that. Predator activated, and Sidious's essence transfer technique began to unravel. The Sith Lord's projected consciousness was being pulled apart, analyzed, consumed. It was excruciating for both of them. Rimuru felt like he was swallowing poison, and Sidious experienced his very self being torn to pieces. Warning: consuming conscious entity with intact force connection. Risk of dark side corruption. Moderate. Recommend: compartmentalize absorbed memories and techniques. Do not integrate personality matrix. Proceed. Proceed. Get him out of Anakin's head. The mental landscape shattered. Rimuru and Anakin's consciousnesses snapped back to their bodies simultaneously. In the physical world, only seconds had passed. Sidious's body convulsed, his essence transfer interrupted mid-process, his consciousness forcibly yanked back into his physical form, and he was broken. The Sith Lord collapsed, his body smoking and twitching. His eyes, once blazing with malevolent intelligence, were now vacant and confused. The backlash from the failed technique had damaged something fundamental. His connection to the Force flickered weakly, his thoughts scattered and incoherent. What happened? Sidious mumbled, his voice small and lost. Who? Mace Windu stared in shock. Is he brain damaged? Analysis. Subject Sidious suffered severe neurological trauma from interrupted essence transfer. Current mental state: fragmented consciousness, partial amnesia, diminished force connection. Prognosis: permanent cognitive impairment likely. Subject is no longer capable of complex planning or force manipulation. Effectively neutralized as threat. The technique backfired, Rimuru explained, helping Anakin to his feet. When I forcibly interrupted his possession attempt, his consciousness was partially trapped outside his body. When it snapped back, it didn't reassemble correctly. He's broken. Good, Anakin said shakily, leaning on Padme for support. That's what he deserves, after what he tried to do, after what he did to the clones, to the galaxy. He looked at Rimuru with profound gratitude. You saved me. He was in my head and he was winning. If you hadn't... Don't think about it, Rimuru said firmly. You're still you. That's what matters. Yoda approached the broken Sith Lord, studying him with ancient eyes. Defeated Darth Sidious is, but questions remain. His master plan, his contingencies, his allies, much we must still uncover. We have his files, Soe reported, holding up multiple data storage devices. I retrieved them from his private offices during the battle. Everything he's planned, everyone he's corrupted, every secret operation. It's all here. Senator Bail Organa stood shakily in his repulsor pod, surveying the devastated Senate chamber. Masters Jedi Lord Rimuru, what happens now? The Republic has no leader. The war is leaderless on both sides, and billions just watch their Supreme Chancellor revealed as a Sith Lord orchestrating genocide. Now, Padme said, stepping forward with the bearing of the queen she once was, we rebuild. The Republic's constitution is still intact. We can hold emergency elections, establish interim leadership, and begin the process of healing. And the Jedi? Mace asked quietly. After what just happened, after Order 66, even partially successful, how can the galaxy trust us? By earning that trust, Rimuru said. You've just proven you'll stand against tyranny even when it wears a friendly face. You exposed the conspiracy that almost destroyed everything, and you did it without becoming tyrants yourselves. That matters. Veldora bounded over, grinning widely despite the devastation around them. That was amazing. Rimuru, you ate a force storm, and then you dove into someone's brain. This galaxy has the best adventures. This isn't an adventure, Veldora, Benimaru said tiredly, but there was relief in his voice. It's a war we barely won. Actually, Diablo interjected, we've won a battle. The war is just beginning. He gestured to the holographic displays still active around the chamber, showing news feeds from across the galaxy. Separatist territories were in chaos with Dooku's betrayal. Republic worlds were rioting as they processed Palpatine's confession. Military forces on both sides were fragmenting as soldiers questioned their orders and allegiances. The Clone Wars were orchestrated by Sidious to create his empire, Diablo continued. But now the orchestrator is gone, and both sides are rudderless ships in a storm. Some will welcome peace, others will see opportunity for power grabs, and still others, he paused significantly, will seek revenge against the Jedi for their role, however unwitting, in Sidious's plan. He's right, Obi-Wan admitted. We've cut off the head of the conspiracy, but the body is still thrashing. This won't end cleanly. Commander Cody entered the chamber with Rex and a squad of clone troopers. all confirmed to have their chips disabled or removed. They looked at the broken form of Palpatine with expressions mixing rage, betrayal, and hollow vindication. "Generals," Cody said, his voice tight, "we've been receiving reports from across the galaxy. The countermeasure is working, but the damage is done. Hundreds of Jedi are dead. Thousands of clones are waking up to realize they murdered their friends, and the ones who haven't woken up yet." He swallowed hard. "Permission to speak freely, sir?" "Always, Cody," Obi-Wan replied. "What happens to us now? The clones. We were created as weapons, used as slaves, programmed to commit genocide. Even with the chips removed, how can anyone trust us again? How can we trust ourselves?" Rimuru stepped forward, placing a hand on Cody's shoulder. "The same way Anakin has to trust himself after Sidious invaded his mind. The same way the Jedi have to trust themselves after being blind to the conspiracy. You acknowledge what happened. You work to make amends, and you choose to be better than your worst moment. That's all any of us can do." Rex nodded slowly. "Some of the boys are talking about deserting, removing their armor and disappearing into the galaxy. Can't say I blame them." "And some," Commander Wolf added, "are talking about continuing to serve. We're soldiers. It's what we know. But we want to serve something worth believing in this time." "Then help us build it," Padme said, her voice carrying the authority of a leader born rather than made. "A new republic, one without corruption, without slavery, without secret armies programmed to kill. It won't be easy, it won't be quick, but if we work together, Jedi, clones, senators, and yes, even interdimensional visitors, we can create something better than what Sidious destroyed." "I like this woman," Shuna said approvingly. "She speaks with wisdom and hope. Lord Rimuru, can we help them, even though this isn't our galaxy?" Rimuru looked around the devastated Senate chamber, at the Jedi still tending wounded, at the clones struggling with their betrayal, at the senators trying to process that their government had been a lie, at his companions who'd fought beside him against impossible odds. "Raphael," he said quietly, "what's our status on finding a way home?" "Analysis, dimensional travel research progress, 23%. Estimated time to develop reliable return method, 6 to 8 months, given available resources and continued study of local universe physics." Conclusion: analysis, subject, and companions are stranded in Star Wars universe for foreseeable future. Recommendation: establish sustainable presence and meaningful relationships rather than isolation. 6 to 8 months minimum, Rimuru said aloud. "We're not going home anytime soon, so yes, Shuna, we can help. We should help, because that's what we do." Yoda's ears perked up and something like a smile crossed his ancient face. "Stranded in our galaxy you are, yet help you offer freely. Truly the Force works in mysterious ways, or perhaps," his eyes twinkled with humor, "beyond the Force, compassion exists that needs no mystical energy to motivate it." "Master Yoda," Mace said, "we need to convene the full Jedi Council. There are decisions to be made about our future role, about how we rebuild." An explosion rocked the Senate building. Then another, and another. Alarms wailed as security systems detected multiple breaches. Through the damaged walls, they could see smoke rising from across the Senate district. Coordinated attacks hitting government buildings, communication centers, and military installations. Alert: detecting 47 simultaneous explosions across Coruscant. Pattern analysis: coordinated terrorist attack. Source unknown. Objective: maximum chaos and governmental disruption. Warning, additional attacks probable. Recommend immediate lockdown and evacuation protocols. What now? Anakin demanded, igniting his lightsaber. A hologram flickered to life in the center of the chamber, a figure in dark robes, their face hidden by a hood. When they spoke, their voice was distorted, synthesized, impossible to identify. "Citizens of the Republic," the figure said, "you have just witnessed the revelation that your Supreme Chancellor was a Sith Lord who orchestrated a war that killed billions. You watched the Jedi, your supposed protectors, admit they were blind to this deception for years, and now you learn that your clone army was programmed to commit genocide." The figure paused, letting the words sink in. The Republic is broken, the Jedi are compromised, the military is fractured. Into this chaos, we offer an alternative. We are the Crimson Dawn. We are the voice of those who refuse to be pawns in the games of Force users and politicians. We will not accept a new government built on the ashes of the old corruption. We will burn it all down and build something truly new. This is not a negotiation. This is a reckoning. The hologram cut out. Bail Organa's face was pale. "Crimson Dawn, I've heard rumors of them, a criminal syndicate that's been growing in the Outer Rim. But this is open warfare against the Republic itself." "They're right about one thing," a Senator Rimuru didn't recognize said bitterly. "The Republic is broken. Maybe it deserves to burn." "No?" Padme's voice cut through the despair like a blade. "That's exactly what Sidious would have wanted, for us to tear ourselves apart in despair and cynicism. Yes, the Republic failed. Yes, we were all blind. But the answer isn't destruction. It's reconstruction. It's justice. It's doing better." "Wise words," another voice said, and Count Dooku stepped into the chamber. The former Sith Lord looked haggard, his elegant robe stained and torn. But his bearing remained aristocratic. Though coming from someone so young, they carry more weight than my own similar sentiments ever did. Lightsabers ignited instantly. 24 blades pointed at the Separatist leader. "Peace!" Dooku raised his hands, empty and non-threatening. "I'm not here to fight. I'm here because my former master is defeated. My Separatist alliance is collapsing, and I find myself in the unusual position of being a war criminal with nothing left to lead." He looked at Sidious's broken form with something approaching pity. "I helped build this nightmare. Perhaps it's time I help dismantle it." "You want to help?" Mace said skeptically, his blade still raised. "You who killed dozens of Jedi, you who burned entire worlds?" "I want to make amends," Dooku corrected. "I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I can provide intelligence on Separatist holdouts, identify which corporate leaders were truly complicit versus merely coerced, and help broker peace with systems that followed me out of genuine grievance rather than manipulation." He met Mace's eyes steadily. "Let me help clean up the mess I helped create. Then you can arrest me, try me, and execute me if you wish. But let me do some good first." Rimuru studied Dooku through Raphael's analysis. Subject Dooku, emotional state, genuine remorse, 78%. Pragmatic self-preservation, 18%. Residual dark side influence, 4%. Probability of betrayal, 23%. Probability of genuine cooperation, 70%. Conclusion, calculated risk worth taking given intelligence value. "He's sincere," Rimuru said. "Mostly, and we need all the help we can get." Yoda approached Dooku, looking up at his former student with eyes that had witnessed centuries of tragedy. "Fall far you did, but return perhaps you can. difficult the path will be, accept it, will you?" "I have no choice, Master," Dooku said quietly. "And more importantly, I no longer want one. I'm tired of being the villain." "Then welcome back to the light," Yoda said simply. "Even from the deepest darkness, return is possible." As discussions began about immediate security measures, political restructuring, and how to address the Crimson Dawn threat, Rimuru found himself standing with his companions at one of the damaged Senate chamber's windows, looking out over Coruscant. The city burned in places. Smoke rose from dozens of sites. Emergency vehicles screamed through traffic lanes, and somewhere out there, a new threat was rising from the ashes of Palpatine's defeated conspiracy. "We stopped Order 66, Benimaru said quietly. "We defeated a Sith Lord. We exposed a galaxy-wide conspiracy. So why does it feel like we've just started a longer war?" "Because we have," Diablo replied. "Palpatine's empire would have been tyranny, yes, but it would have been order, brutal, oppressive order. Now we have chaos, and from chaos, 100 new threats can emerge." "But also hope," Shuna countered. "They have a chance now to build something better. Without Sidious manipulating everything, they can make real choices." 6 to 8 months, Veldora mused, gazing at the unfamiliar stars. "We're stuck here for 6 to 8 months. Think we can help fix an entire galaxy in that time?" Rimuru smiled tiredly. "We built a nation of monsters from nothing. We defeated demon lords and primordial beings. How hard can reconstructing a galactic republic be?" His companions laughed, genuine warm laughter that felt strange in the midst of so much devastation. But it was human, it was real, it was hope in the face of darkness. And across the galaxy, on thousands of worlds, billions of beings looked to the stars and wondered what would come next. The Clone Wars were ending, but the true battle for the galaxy's soul was just beginning. In the shadows of Coruscant's lower levels, the figure who delivered the Crimson Dawn message removed their hood, revealing the face of someone who'd been thought dead years ago. They smiled coldly. "Let the Jedi and their interdimensional friends celebrate their victory," they whispered. "They've stopped one tyrant. They have no idea how many more wait in the wings. The galaxy will burn, and from the ashes, we will rule." But high in the Jedi Temple, as dawn broke over the battered but unbroken city, Master Yoda stood in meditation. He felt the ripples in the Force, threats gathering, alliances forming, and most significantly, the presence of beings from beyond the galaxy who had changed everything. "Different the future is now," Yoda said to the Force itself. "No longer shrouded in darkness. Uncertain, yes. Dangerous, certainly. But possible. For the first time in years, possible." And in his recovery bed, Anakin Skywalker held Padme's hand and stared at the ceiling, thinking about the darkness that had tried to consume him and the light that had pulled him back. "I almost fell," he whispered. "But you didn't," Padme replied. "That's what matters." The prophecy said he would bring balance to the Force. Maybe, just maybe, he still could. Not by destroying the Sith or empowering the Jedi, but by helping build a galaxy where the Force itself was understood differently, where light and dark weren't absolute enemies but aspects of a greater whole. It was a new kind of balance, and it had taken beings from another universe to show him the possibility. The war was won. Now came the harder part, winning the peace. 3 weeks had passed since the Battle of the Senate. 3 weeks of frantic reconstruction, political negotiations, emergency sessions, and the slow, painful work of healing a galaxy that had bled for years. Rimuru stood on one of the Jedi Temple's highest observation platforms, watching the sun set over Coruscant. The city still bore scars from the Crimson Dawn attacks, but reconstruction droids worked day and night. The Senate had reconvened under emergency leadership, a council of senators elected by their peers until proper elections could be held. Padme Amidala served as interim chancellor, her youth and idealism balanced by advisors who'd survived Palpatine's purges. "Admiring your handiwork?" Obi-Wan's voice came from behind him. Rimuru turned to see the Jedi Master approaching, 2 cups of caf in hand. He accepted one gratefully. "I wouldn't call it my handiwork. We just gave you the push you needed. The galaxy did the heavy lifting." "Modest," Obi-Wan observed with a slight smile. "And inaccurate. Without you, Order 66 would have succeeded completely. The Jedi Order would be extinct. Palpatine would have declared himself emperor, and no one would have been able to stop him. You didn't just push, you saved billions of lives." "And created new problems," Rimuru said, thinking of the intelligence reports Zoe brought him daily. "The Crimson Dawn is consolidating power in the Outer Rim. Separatist holdouts refuse to surrender now that they know the war was manipulation. And half the galaxy doesn't know whether to thank the Jedi or blame them for not seeing Sidious sooner." "Problems," Obi-Wan agreed, "but problems we can solve, as opposed to extinction, which is rather permanent." He sipped his caf, gazing out at the endless cityscape. "The Council has been discussing something. We wanted your input before making it official." "My input?" "You and your companions have been living in temporary quarters here for 3 weeks. You've been instrumental in coordinating the Separatist surrender negotiations, helping deprogram clones and establishing the new Republic Security Force. But you've also been clear that you're trying to find a way home to your own universe." Rimuru nodded. "Raphael's making progress. Maybe 4 more months. We've been analyzing the dimensional physics here, comparing them to what we know from our world. It's complicated." 4 months. Obi-Wan turned to face him directly. "Lord Rimuru, the Jedi Council would like to offer you and your people a formal position. Not as Jedi. We understand your magic is different from the Force, but as advisors, allies, friends who've proven themselves when we needed them most. You want us to stay, officially? We want you to know you're welcome," Obi-Wan clarified. "Whether you stay permanently until you find your way home or leave tomorrow, you'll always have a place here. The Republic owes you a debt we can never repay. But more than that, we'd value your continued friendship and counsel." Rimuru felt warmth spread through his chest, genuine gratitude and acceptance. "I'll discuss it with my people. But Obi-Wan, thank you for treating us like people instead of weapons or problems to be managed." "You've earned far more than basic decency," Obi-Wan said. "You've earned our trust, which, given recent events, is not something we give lightly anymore." A chime from Rimuru's communicator interrupted them. Diablo's voice came through, carrying unusual urgency. "My lord, you're needed in the war room immediately. We have a situation." The war room was packed. Jedi Masters, Republic military commanders, clone officers, and Rimuru's full team all crowded around the central holographic display. The image showed a sector of space in the unknown regions, territory largely unmapped and unexplored. "What are we looking at?" Rimuru asked as he entered. Commander Cody manipulated the display, zooming in. 3 days ago, we lost contact with a Republic survey ship exploring this sector. Standard procedure. We assumed equipment failure or hyperspace miscalculation. Then yesterday we lost contact with the search and rescue team we sent. This morning, we lost contact with 2 more ships investigating the disappearances. 4 ships, Mace Windu said grimly, gone without a trace. No distress signals, no debris, no evidence of separatist activity, just vanished. We sent a probe, Cody continued. Remote observation only, no crew to risk. It transmitted this before it also went silent. The hologram shifted to show probe footage. A massive structure hung in space. Not a natural formation, but clearly artificial. It was pyramid-shaped, kilometers across, built from black metal that seemed to absorb light. Strange symbols covered its surface, glowing with sickly green luminescence. Alert, analyzing structure, architecture, non-republic, non-separatist, non-Jedi, non-Sith, energy signature, unknown classification, composition, unknown alloys. Symbols, unknown language with similarities to ancient Sith texts, but predating them by estimated 10,000 plus years. Threat assessment extreme. Conclusion, this is not from known galactic civilization. Possible origin, extragalactic or extratemporal. It's not from this galaxy, Rimuru said slowly, or at least not from this time period. Raphael estimates it's over 10,000 years old, minimum. Yoda's ears flattened against his skull. Felt this, I have. In the Force, a darkness, not Sith darkness. Something older, something that waits. Waits for what? Anakin asked. The hologram continued playing. The probe approached the structure, its sensors recording frantically. Then the Black Pyramid seemed to notice it. The green symbols flared brighter, and a beam of energy lanced out. Not destructive energy, but something else. The probe's systems went haywire, its instruments reading impossible data, its AI screaming error messages. Then the transmission cut out. Whatever's in there, Admiral Tarkin said, the stern military officer who'd been appointed to help reorganize Republic forces. It's hostile and powerful. My recommendation is quarantine. Seal off that sector, declare it restricted space, and warn all ships to avoid it. With respect, Admiral, Padme's hologram said. She was attending the meeting remotely from the Senate building. We can't just ignore an unknown threat. What if it decides to move? What if there are more of these structures? Then we're already in trouble beyond our ability to handle, Tarkin replied bluntly. Dooku, who had been observing quietly from the side of the room, still technically a prisoner but granted limited freedom to assist with separatist negotiations, spoke up. I've seen references to structures like this in ancient Sith texts. The old Sith Lords, before the rule of 2, spoke of the architects, beings from beyond the Outer Rim, who built monuments to unknowable purposes. Most scholars dismissed it as legend or metaphor. Doesn't look like a metaphor, Rex said, studying the structure with soldiers' pragmatism. Looks like a weapon or a ship or both. Veldora leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with excitement. This is fascinating. An ancient extragalactic structure with unknown technology. Rimuru, we have to investigate. Think of what we could learn. Think of what could kill us, Benamaru countered. We just finished one war. We don't need to start another against something we don't understand. But that's exactly why we need to investigate, Shuna said thoughtfully. If this structure has been dormant for 10,000 years and suddenly became active, what woke it? The defeat of Sidious, our rival, something else. Hypothesis, Structure activation correlates with significant force disturbance events. Timeline analysis. Structure first detected 2 days after Sidious's defeat. Probability that defeating Sith Lord triggered activation, 67.4%. Alternative hypothesis. Structure's sensors detected interdimensional travelers. Analysis subject and companions. Probability 43.8%. Conclusion. Either victory over Sidious or presence of beings from another universe has awakened dormant ancient technology. We might have woken it up, Rimuru said, voicing Raphael's conclusion, either by defeating Sidious and disrupting the Force's balance, or simply by existing here as interdimensional anomalies. If that's true, this is partially our responsibility. Absolutely not, Mace said firmly. You're not responsible for every consequence of saving the galaxy from tyranny. But I am responsible for investigating threats that I may have activated, Rimuru countered. Master Windu, I'm not suggesting we invade it with an army, but a small, stealthy reconnaissance team. Find out what it is, what it wants, whether it's actually dangerous or just strange. I volunteer, Anakin said immediately. As do I, Obi-Wan added. You're both too valuable, Admiral Tarkin objected. We can't risk the Jedi's best. With respect, Admiral, Ahsoka interrupted. This is exactly the kind of mission Jedi are meant for. Unknown threats requiring investigation and possibly negotiation. Besides, she gestured to Rimuru's group. We won't be going alone. A joint expedition, Padme said, understanding dawning. Jedi and interdimensional travelers, combining Force abilities with magic. If anyone can safely investigate, it would be that combination. It's madness, Tarkin muttered. It's Tuesday, Veldora said cheerfully. We do mad things on Tuesday. After 2 hours of debate, the plan was finalized. A small team would take a stealth corvette into the unknown regions, approach the structure carefully, and attempt to gather intelligence. If it proved hostile, they'd retreat immediately, and the sector would be quarantined with military blockades. If it proved dormant but potentially dangerous, they'd establish monitoring stations. And if, by some miracle, it proved benign or communicative, they'd attempt first contact protocols. The team was selected: Rimuru, Diablo, Veldora, and Benimaru from the interdimensional group, Anakin, Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, and Yoda from the Jedi, Commander Rex, and a small squad of clones who'd proven themselves adaptable and skilled. And surprisingly, Count Dooku, who argued that his knowledge of ancient Sith lore might prove valuable. This is insane, Commander Cody said as they prepared for departure. We just survived one apocalypse. Now we're flying toward another. Story of my life, Rimuru replied with a tired smile. Survive one impossible situation, immediately stumble into the next. The stealth corvette departed from Coruscant at dawn, slipping into hyperspace with minimal fanfare. Most of the galaxy was focused on rebuilding, on peace negotiations, on processing the trauma of Palpatine's betrayal. They had no idea that in the darkness of the unknown regions, something ancient was stirring. 4 days later, unknown regions. The Black Pyramid hung in space like a wound in reality. Up close, it was even more unsettling. The symbols on its surface moved, shifting in patterns that hurt to look at directly. The metal absorbed sensor scans, making detailed analysis impossible. I have a bad feeling about this, Obi-Wan muttered, the old phrase carrying more weight than usual. Obvious, Yoda agreed. Yet necessary investigation is. Sense something I do, not evil precisely, but other. different, wrong for this galaxy. They maneuvered closer using the stealth corvette's minimal thrusters, trying to avoid detection. Analysis ongoing. Structure energy output increasing proportional to approach distance. Conclusion: structure is aware of our presence and responding. Recommendation: prepare for contact, peaceful or hostile. A section of the pyramid's surface irised open, a perfect circular portal that definitely hadn't been there moments before. Beyond it, a corridor stretched into darkness lit by the same sickly green symbols. "It's inviting us in," Ahsoka said. "That's either really good or really bad." "Only one way to find out," Anakin said, already moving toward the shuttle bay. "Who's with me?" They all were, of course. That's why they'd come. The interior of the structure defied physics. Corridors intersected at impossible angles. Gravity shifted directions without warning. The walls seemed to breathe, pulsing with that green luminescence. And everywhere the symbols, thousands of them, covering every surface, whispering in languages that predated civilization. Warning: dimensional space inside structure does not conform to external dimensions. Interior volume exceeds exterior volume by factor of 847. Space-time manipulation detected. Recommendation: map carefully to avoid disorientation. "This place is bigger on the inside than the outside," Veldora observed. "Impressive. Reminds me of some demon lord techniques I've seen." "Not comforting," Ahsoka replied. They pressed deeper, following the corridors that seemed to guide them toward a central chamber. Along the way, they passed rooms filled with technology so advanced it looked like magic. Or perhaps was magic, just operating on principles they didn't understand. Finally, they reached the heart of the structure. The central chamber was vast, a sphere several hundred meters in diameter, its walls covered in those shifting symbols. At the center floated a crystalline structure pulsing with energy, and within the crystal, perfectly preserved, was a being. It was humanoid, but clearly not human. Tall, thin, with skin that shimmered like starlight, and eyes that held depths that shouldn't exist in a physical form. It wore robes that seemed to be made of light itself. And even in stasis, it radiated power that made Sidious look like a child playing with matches. As they approached, the being's eyes opened. Critical alert, entity awakening, power level, catastrophic, classification unknown, threat level cannot quantify. Recommendation, extreme diplomatic caution. This being exceeds all known power scales. The crystal dissolved, and the being floated down gracefully to stand before them. When it spoke, its voice bypassed sound entirely. It simply appeared in their minds, in whatever language each person thought in. "Fascinating," the being said, studying them with curious eyes. "The Force brings me Jedi, and something else. Something not of this universe. How delightfully unexpected." Yoda stepped forward, leaning on his stick, meeting the being's gaze without fear. "Who are you? Why wake now after millennia of sleep?" "I am called the Architect, though that is a title, not a name. As for why I wake," the being looked directly at Rimuru. "Because I felt a tear in dimensional fabric, beings from another reality crossing into this one. Such an event has not occurred in this galaxy for over 30,000 years. Naturally, I was curious." "You've been sleeping for 30,000 years?" Anakin asked incredulously. "Sleeping, waiting, observing. Time passes differently for my kind." The Architect walked around them in a circle, studying each person with unnerving intensity. "You defeated the Sith Lord. Clever. He was becoming tedious, but you have created a vacuum, and nature abhors vacuums. Already new powers gather to fill the void. The Crimson Dawn, Rimuru said. You know about them? I know about everything that occurs within my sensor's range, which is considerable. The architect stopped before Rimuru. You interest me most, traveler. You carry power from a completely different metaphysical framework. Not the Force, not technology, but something purer, more fundamental. Warning, entity is scanning analysis subject, cannot block scan. Entity possesses analysis capabilities comparable to or exceeding Raphael's. Information being extracted. Severe risk. Stop scanning me, Rimuru said firmly, releasing a pulse of his own power. I don't know what you are, but reading people's minds without permission is rude in any universe. The architect paused, then something like a smile crossed its alien features. Rude. Yes, I suppose it is, forgive me. When you sleep for millennia, social niceties become fuzzy. It stopped the scan. Very well, let me speak plainly. I am one of the architects, a species that built structures like this across multiple galaxies over 1 million years ago. We were researchers, explorers, seekers of knowledge. This station was designed to monitor dimensional stability, to detect and investigate breaches between realities. Why? Obi-Wan asked. Because breaches are dangerous. They can destabilize both universes if not properly managed. Your arrival, it gestured to Rimuru and his companions, created a significant disturbance. I woke to assess whether you pose a threat to dimensional integrity. And, Diablo asked, his voice carrying an edge, what's your assessment? You are stable, the architect said. The breach that brought you here sealed itself cleanly. Your presence is not causing ongoing dimensional degradation. However, its expression became serious. You cannot return home the way you came. The dimensional pathways are too unstable. Any attempt to force your way back would tear holes in reality itself, possibly destroying both universes. The words hit like a physical blow. Rimuru felt his companion's shock, heard Shuna's gasp, saw Veldora's excited expression crumble. We're stuck here, Benimaru said quietly. Permanently? Not necessarily, the architect replied. There are methods, controlled, stable dimensional travel that wouldn't risk catastrophic damage. But they require technology and knowledge you don't currently possess. It would take years to develop, perhaps decades. Rimuru felt the weight of that truth settling over him. Years, decades. His friends back in Tempest would think he was dead. His nation would move on without him. Everything he'd built, everyone he cared about, separated by dimensional barriers he couldn't cross. However, the architect continued, I may be able to help. My people studied dimensional mechanics for eons. This station contains archives, technology, and knowledge that could accelerate your research considerably. I would be willing to share it. In exchange for what? Diablo asked suspiciously. Nothing sinister, I assure you. Simply this, help this galaxy heal. You've already begun the work, defeating Sidious, preventing Order 66's completion, establishing new governments. Continue it. Become the stabilizing force this galaxy needs as it transitions from war to peace. In exchange, I will teach you the science of dimensional travel, and perhaps, in time, you will return home, but as ambassadors, not refugees, carrying knowledge and friendship between universes. Yoda studied the architect with ancient, calculating eyes. Trust you, why should we? Powerful you are, dangerous certainly, your own agenda you must have. Of course I have an agenda, the architect admitted freely. I wish to study you, to learn about your universe, your magic systems, your societies. Knowledge is my purpose. It's why my species built these monitoring stations. But I gain nothing from harming you, and everything from cooperating. Rimuru looked at his companions, seeing his own conflict reflected in their faces, trapped here for years, maybe decades, but with hope of return if they worked for it. And in the meantime, a galaxy that needed help, that had welcomed them despite their strangeness. We need to discuss this, Rimuru said, privately. Of course, take all the time you need. I've waited 30,000 years. A few hours more won't matter. They retreated to a corner of the vast chamber, speaking in hushed tones. The debate was intense. Benimaru argued for accepting immediately, seeing it as their only realistic path home. Veldora wanted to explore every other option before committing. Diablo was deeply suspicious of the architect's motives, and Shuna simply looked sad, thinking of the people they'd left behind. Finally, Rimuru made a decision. We'll accept, he announced, returning to stand before the architect, but on conditions. 1. You share your knowledge freely, holding nothing back. 2. You help us establish safe, stable communication with our home universe, even if travel isn't possible yet. 3. You do not experiment on us or treat us as specimens. We're partners in this, not subjects. The architect considered, then nodded. Acceptable, though I should warn you, establishing even communication across dimensional barriers will take months, possibly a year. The mathematics are complex. Then we'll work for a year, Rimuru said. We'll help this galaxy, we'll learn dimensional mechanics, and we'll find our way home. Properly, safely, and maybe. He glanced at the Jedi, at the clones, at this galaxy that had become more than just a temporary refuge. Maybe we'll have made a real difference here. Perhaps, Yoda said with a gentle smile, stranded here you were meant to be. The Force, or whatever power guides your universe, has strange ways of putting people where they're needed. 6 months later, Coruscant. The Jedi Temple's reconstruction was complete, its spires once again reaching toward the sky, though now with subtle differences. Memorial gardens for the fallen, open meditation spaces, and classrooms where young Jedi learned not just from masters, but from visiting scholars, clone veterans, and yes, even interdimensional travelers. Rimuru stood in one such classroom, teaching a group of Padawans about magical theory from his universe. Shuna taught healing techniques to Jedi Medical Corps. Hakaru sparred with Jedi weapon masters, each learning from the other's style. Gobta, surprisingly, had become popular with the younglings, his unconventional tactics and willingness to look foolish making him an engaging teacher. The Republic was healing, slowly, painfully, but genuinely. Chancellor Padme Amidala's government had established new checks on executive power, created independent oversight of the military, and begun the long process of integrating clones into civilian society. Many chose to remain soldiers. It was what they knew and did well. But others retired, taking up new professions, discovering identities beyond their training. The Crimson Dawn remained a threat, but a manageable one. Without Palpatine's chaos to hide in, they found their influence waning against a republic that was genuinely trying to do better. Count Dooku had submitted to trial, and received a sentence of supervised rehabilitation and public service. He now traveled to worlds he'd once devastated, working personally on reconstruction efforts, facing the consequences of his actions daily. It wasn't redemption, not yet, but it was a start. And in the unknown regions, the Architect's Station had become a hub of research. Scientists, Jedi scholars, and Rimuru's companions working together to unlock the mysteries of dimensional travel. Progress was steady. Communication with Tempest had been established 3 months ago. Brief, limited, but real. His friends knew he was alive, knew he'd return someday. And until then, he had work to do here. Anakin Skywalker had changed most visibly. The prophecy about the Chosen One bringing balance to the Force now had new interpretation, not through destruction but through evolution. He'd become a bridge between old Jedi traditions and new understanding, teaching that attachment wasn't evil, merely something requiring wisdom. He and Padme had married quietly, with only close friends attending. The Jedi Council had not approved, exactly, but neither had they forbidden it. Times were changing. As Rimuru's class concluded and the Padawans filed out chattering excitedly about magical theory, Obi-Wan entered. "Preparing for tonight?" the Jedi Master asked. "As much as I can be," Rimuru replied. Tonight was significant, the formal ceremony where he and his companions would be granted Republic citizenship and named official ambassadors. After 6 months of limbo, they'd finally have legal status, official recognition. Still feels strange putting down roots when we're planning to leave eventually. "Is it that different from what you did in your own universe?" Obi-Wan asked. "You built a nation knowing you might face threats that could destroy it. You formed bonds knowing you might lose people, living fully in the present while preparing for an uncertain future. That's just life, Rimuru, in any universe." Before Rimuru could respond, alarms blared throughout the temple. Not attack warnings, communication alerts. Something big was happening. They ran to the communication center, finding it in controlled chaos. Master Windu stood at the center, coordinating responses, his expression grim but focused. "What's happening?" Rimuru demanded. "First contact," Mace said. "Real first contact. A ship just appeared at the edge of the galaxy, not from any known species or territory. They're broadcasting a greeting in thousands of languages, including several we don't recognize. They're asking to speak with the Republic's leadership and..." He paused significantly. "With the travelers from beyond. They specifically asked for you by name." Alert. Detecting unusual dimensional signatures from reported contact vessel. Analysis. Ship originates from different universe. Not analysis subject's universe, but definitely not native to Star Wars galaxy. Conclusion. Multiple dimensional breaches have occurred. Other universes are reaching out. Situation complexity escalating dramatically. Other dimensional travelers, Rimuru said slowly, from other universes, here to make contact. "It would appear," Obi-Wan said, "that your arrival was not an isolated incident. The barriers between universes are weakening, or perhaps being deliberately opened." Rimuru thought of the architect's words about monitoring dimensional stability, about breaches being dangerous if not properly managed. He thought about his own accidental arrival, about the years of work ahead to get home safely, and he thought about what it meant if multiple universes were suddenly reaching out to each other, if the boundaries that separated realities were becoming permeable. "This is bigger than one war," he said quietly, "bigger than one galaxy." The multiverse itself is changing. Then it's fortunate, Yoda said, entering the communications center with his characteristic shuffle, that experienced dimensional travelers we now have. Guide us through this you can. If willing, you are. Rimuru looked around at the faces he'd come to know over 6 months, Jedi who'd become friends, clones who'd become allies, a galaxy that had welcomed strangers when it had every reason to be suspicious. He thought of Tempest, waiting for him across dimensional barriers. He thought of the responsibilities he carried in both universes now. I'm willing, he said. But Master Yoda, I think we're going to need a bigger team. This isn't something the Jedi or my companions can handle alone. Then we build that team. Padme's voice came through the comm, already thinking politically. Representatives from every major faction, scientists, soldiers, diplomats, force users, and magic users, a council dedicated to understanding and managing interdimensional relations. The Dimensional Council, Anakin suggested, has a nice ring to it. Rimuru felt a smile tugging at his lips, despite the gravity of the situation. 6 months ago, he'd fallen through a tear in reality into a galaxy at war. He'd helped prevent genocide, defeated a Sith Lord, and started rebuilding a broken republic. Now, apparently, he was about to become an interdimensional diplomat, managing first contact between multiple universes. Veldora's going to love this, he muttered. What was that? Obi-Wan asked. Nothing, just thinking that my life has gotten very complicated very quickly. He straightened, pushing aside exhaustion and uncertainty. There was work to do. There was always work to do. All right, let's go meet our new interdimensional visitors, and hopefully they're more friendly than the last crisis we dealt with. As they prepared to greet representatives from another universe, as the Republic mobilized its finest diplomats and scientists, as the Jedi Council convened emergency sessions, Rimuru paused at a window overlooking Coruscant. Somewhere out there in the multiverse, Tempest continued without him. His friends carried on, his nation persevered, and he would return to them. He'd made that promise to himself, but he'd also made promises here, to help, to guide, to use his power responsibly. And as the boundaries between universes weakened, as reality itself became more fluid, those promises took on new weight. The Clone Wars had ended. Order 66 had been stopped. Palpatine had fallen, but the story wasn't over. It was just beginning. And this time it would be written not by one galaxy's inhabitants alone, but by representatives from across the multiverse, all trying to navigate a reality that was far stranger, far more complex, and far more connected than anyone had imagined. Rimuru Tempest had been a Japanese salaryman once. Then he'd been reincarnated as a slime. He'd become a demon lord, built a nation, faced gods and dragons. And now he was about to become something entirely new, a bridge between universes, a voice for beings who didn't belong to any single reality, a friend to galaxies that had never known beings like him existed. It wasn't the destiny he'd planned. But then again, the best stories rarely followed the plan. Ready? Diablo asked, appearing at his side. Never, Rimuru admitted honestly. But when has that ever stopped us? Never, my lord, never. Together they walked toward the landing platform where a ship from another universe waited. Behind them, the Jedi Temple stood strong, rebuilt but different, improved by its breaking and healing. Before them, infinite possibilities stretched across dimensional barriers that were no longer absolute. The galaxy far, far away had changed forever. And somewhere in the space between realities, in the quantum foam where universes touched and separated and touched again, other travelers stirred. Other stories began. Other heroes and villains and ordinary people faced extraordinary circumstances. The multiverse was vast, and they'd only just begun to explore it. In Tempest, thousands of light years and a dimensional barrier away, Benimaru's clone administration reviewed reports. Their lord's last message had been hopeful. Progress was being made, return was possible. They would wait. On Coruscant, in the Chancellor's office, Padme signed the Dimensional Relations Act into law, creating the galaxy's first official framework for managing contact between universes. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. In the unknown regions, the architect studied data from the new arrivals with interest. Multiple breaches, multiple universes, all converging on this galaxy. Fascinating, concerning, and undeniably exciting. And in the shadows between stars, Darth Sidious's consciousness, the fragment that had survived his defeat, sustained by dark-side techniques older than the Republic, plotted his return. He'd underestimated interdimensional travelers once. He would not make that mistake again. The war was won. The peace was fragile. And somewhere in the infinite multiverse, forces both benign and malevolent were taking notice of a galaxy that had learned it was not alone. The story of Rimuru Tempest in the Star Wars galaxy had reached its first conclusion, but the journey was far from over. New challenges awaited, new friendships would form, new enemies would emerge, and through it all, one truth remained. Where there was hope, where there was will, where there were beings who refused to surrender to darkness, there was always a path forward. May the Force be with them, and may their own powers serve them equally well. The galaxy would need both.